voids. Get out of my head. I get the creeps from everyone's eyes on me. Bloodthirsty, sharpen your tongue, sink in your teeth. Bloodthirsty, sharpen your tongue, sink in your teeth. Bloodthirsty, bloodthirsty.
Welcome, movie maniacs, to Horror Feed TV. I am Ricky Grimes, back at it again. We got JR on top. What's up, JR?
Much, man. Wait and see if this movie's like how you just did, or it's just a little bit of a bark.
Nice one. Joe, what's up, man?
He kind of took a little bit of my line. Same thing. I mean, like, is this going to be a little howl or just a little ooh? But yeah, let's find out.
All right.
Welcome back, everybody.
Awesome. Make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe, share this video with all your friends and family. Come back every Tuesday, 8 p.m. a new video comes up. This one here is going to be a little bit, I don't know. What's the word, guys? It's going to be a more subdued film. So let's jump right into it, guys. Today, we are going to discuss the 2020 film Bloodthirsty, directed by Amelia Moses and starring Lauren Beatty as singer-songwriter Gray and Greg Bright as the eccentric music producer Vaughn Daniels. The third lead in this film is Gray's girlfriend, Charlie, played by Catherine King So. Now, JR, take us through the opening of this film. Help us jump into initial setup of Bloodthirsty.
Right off the bat, we jump into a scene of crunching, flesh being ripped, and we immediately go and see Gray, who's in the woods, ripping the flesh, biting this animal. And it's a prolonged scene, you know, it kind of carries over a little too much. But from there, we go into the introduction of her psychiatrist, Dr. Swan, played by the great Michael Ironside. Now, if you were a horror movie fan from the 80s, you'll remember the movie Scanners. If you're a Schwarzenegger fan, you'll remember him in Total Recall. I mean,
see you at the party, Victor.
This guy always plays a great villain. And if you're a fan of Starship Troopers, Ratchet.
Yep.
It's awesome.
So he sits down with Gray and she talks about how she's having these visions that she's, you know, something inside her, there's something wrong with her. And immediately he tells her that, you know, we can't take you off medication. We're going to give you some other medication for cognitive therapy. So it turns into this whole thing. Is it once again the mind acting in a certain way, or is it something a little bit more beneath the surface?
Well, for me, you know, my first impression of this movie was this was going to be kind of low budget. So I lowered my standards pretty much from the beginning. You know, as you guys said, you know, we're introduced to Gray and Charlie. So Gray is a singer and she is suffering a lot of anxiety because she dropped a first amazing album. So now she's got to deliver on that sophomore album. So she's kind of having a little block right now. She is about to head off to go meet Vaughn, who is the producer, to help her on this album. He's a 90s boy band singer back in the day. So, you know, it's just like right off the bat, it's like, you know, your sophomore album, nothing against 90s singers. You know, I probably would go to somebody different. So again, it's kind of letting you know the kind of movie we're dealing with.
Yeah, you know what? I did like the fact that she's a singer-songwriter and that she has already an album out, and this is a sophomore album because the sophomore album is always the hardest. That's especially if your first album was a big hit. And the fact that me personally, we never had a character that's going through this whole like, this sophomore album like anxiety, you know, for the most part, that she just takes this chance and she knows about Vaughn. The Vaughn has a bit of a checkered past. He was accused of murdering another musician, right?
Singer. Yes.
Yeah. He was acquitted though. He didn't get fully charged on it, but he was charged, but he didn't. He got let out. So already there's red flags with this guy, but she's willing to take that chance. Our main protagonists in this film, Gray, Charlie, like we mentioned before. JR, tell us about these two characters and their relationship with one another.
Well, Joel kind of introduced the Ray to Gray. So for me, Charlie was like the rock for Gray. She was the one that was the foundation for her. She was the one that was always there for her. Every time Charlie felt a certain way, especially about her music, Gray was always there to support her. They were lovers. They were together, and you could tell that Charlie wasn't there for the money. She had genuine interest. Like most of these films, you would have the whole "Are you with me for the money?" mentality, but it wasn't. She was never like that. She didn't appear to be like that, and she always, no matter what, she always saw Gray differently, as this picture here will eventually show down the road. But for me, it's just I like this Charlie character. I wish that there would have had more development into her, but I mean, unfortunately, her role was limited.
My opinions on the two characters, there's nothing else to say about it. I mean, it's pretty cookie cutter at this point. This is both characters so far are really likable, and I did like Charlie a lot. And like JR said, she didn't really have much to do. She was pretty much there to be the moral rock of the story. She kept warning Aaron.
She looked into him.
Great. Sorry.
She looked into Vaughn.
She looked into him. She warned.
Yeah, she warned him. But she's also a painter, so she herself is an artist. So that's where that's where their relationship. There's they have that connection. She's a singer. She's a painter. So they kind of can understand each other.
A little touch that I liked is the fact that she actually went with Gray to go spend time with Vaughn to watch over her. You know what? If you're gonna go, I'm gonna support you, but I'm gonna be there.
Just to watch out.
Yeah, it's I don't know what it is.
I'm not leaving you alone.
Yeah, it's a subtle touch, and that did so much for the relationship that I really dug that. What did this character Vaughn do for you in this film?
Well, unfortunately, this is kind of where my problem is going to come with the movie. So Greg Bright started in 2014 series Bitten, which was about werewolves.
Yeah,
he actually did a really good job. Unfortunately, this is why I was watching this, and since they're both, it's a Canadian show and a Canadian movie, I couldn't stop the comparisons, and Bitten just kept always just superseding everything. Yeah. So that's where it went wrong for me, because he was playing a werewolf again. So now I had this comparison, and I was a fan of his role in Bitten, and I just was not a fan, on this one. So as he's a sketchy past. He was tried but not convicted of the murder of Greta, a singer that he was helping work on the song, which that song comes into play later on as Vaughn tries to get Gray to sing that last song that Greta was supposed to do.
For me, I mean, I agree with Joe. This was a character that I felt was very wasted. This could have been a very, very good horror movie character for what he was representing, which was, to be honest, a patriarchal figure. I mean, he was, like you said before, eccentric, mysterious. He knew there was a constant dark cloud lingering over him. He wanted to isolate Gray so bad because he wanted to influence her. I mean, once he started influencing her a little bit more, pulling her away from Charlie, everything about her started changing. Her music, the way she viewed things. I mean, there's one scene that was kind of odd, but you kind of knew what he was trying to do when he took her outside and told her, "All right, run." And she's like, "What?" He was, "All right, just start running." And then she started running, and I was like, he appeared behind her. She was like, "Oh my God, you didn't even break a sweat." I mean,
yeah. There's another moment where he pulls a gun out and reenacts, a murder. Yeah, I would even. I was out.
She's sitting there playing the piano. He goes.
I mean, the only thing I did like about him was the fact that he knew that Gray was a vegan.
Yeah,
and he basically was making fun of her being a vegan, but it was because as we come later on find out what these two actually have in connection, there's a reason why he was mocking her veganism.
Yeah, even the dinner scene where he's sitting there, they're having a conversation about what she eats. He goes, "Oh, I can never give up meat." And all of a sudden, the conversation goes quiet. He goes, What? Yeah, I know. What? You think I'm guilty? I mean, he was very cocky and arrogant in his manner too.
They showed a close up of him cutting into the actual meat.
It just for me, he could have been a great character, especially for the role he was playing. But
it's kind of crazy because he had, I think, Bitten was 4 seasons, so he had a great reference point. So like, I don't know if maybe he didn't want to do the same role.
Yeah.
Which
yeah.
might be not the, you're playing, yes, you might be doing a similar role, but just, I don't know. It's just, yeah, it fucked it all up for me.
Unfortunately, that's the script. It could be all the script.
For me,
Could be the script too.
For me personally, I've never seen Bitten, so I didn't have anything to compare it to. But with such a small cast, I don't know. I think he did for what he was, the material he was given, he did all right.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
He did all right with it. But another thing in this film too, real quick, let's touch on it. Gray, her music somehow, like, he was trying to get Gray, like, did he know? He knew she was what she was, right?
Yes, he knew. Yeah.
So he was trying to somehow, like, through music, trying to get that out of her. Is that
out of her? Yes.
I was a little kind of confused on that part. So that's okay. If you're an animal lover like I am, this movie is a little harder to watch at times. So keep that in mind if you haven't seen it and you want to still go in after this review. But speaking of like stuff that's not for everyone, the gore in this film. Now this is where I come in and I'm like, I don't know. Discuss this gore for me. G, I'm gonna go to you first. Was there enough blood splatter in this film? Was it subtle enough for you? How were the effects? Because I know it ain't American Werewolf in London, so I'm gonna tell you right now, don't go in expecting that, or The Howling, or any of the classic werewolf films. What do you say about these effects? Enough or too little?
Too little, too disappointing. One scene I'm gonna focus on is where he sends, I forgot her name, I think it was Vera, to go pick up a hitchhiker.
Yeah.
And they brought her back to the area I get out, and it was meant for him to go hunting. And this scene could have been magnificent.
Yeah.
And it was so short-lived. And it's like when you knew the attack, it was repeated. This one scene where they would sit there, and like he was sitting in the room with the fireplace with blood all over his mouth, a little smirk on his face.
Yeah.
When she killed the rabbit, what did she do? She's in the bathroom taking a shower, blood all over her face. I mean, they had a lot of, how to put it, potential to really. I mean, if you're a horror fan, you watch werewolf films for one thing specifically: the change. You want to see how the change is different. Now, if you watch Howling, I mean, they had good change of werewolves.
Rob Bottin, underappreciated. Let me tell you.
If you watch a film like Underworld, I mean, their change was pretty. I mean, CGI, but it was pretty cool.
That's what I was exactly what I was going to say. Like,
it's pretty cool, but you always look forward to the changes, and this movie never really gave us that full potential for changes.
No, you're not going to create 1981's Werewolf in London transformation. It's one of the best.
Still
using
best.
Practical. It is, and it's all practical.
Mm-hmm.
Then the movie just as a whole the special effects kind of sucked, and there was lack of gore. I mean, it's a werewolf. You're supposed to see great transformation, and you're supposed to see an animal tear into something. So yeah, that big letdown on both those ends for me.
I think this is tailored towards more like a younger crowd.
It's definitely more. Yeah.
This movie was made for TV. It wasn't made for
that.
Yes.
This was made for TV.
I was trying to think of a way to classify that because I was thinking about it. This would be something you would see on Sci-Fi.
Yes.
How some of the
TBS,
local
TNT.
station. Well, some of the local stations have that random movie at like 4:00 in the afternoon. This little random horror movie out of nowhere. You're like, oh, I never saw this before. Like that's kind of unfortunately what this movie is like.
Yeah, well, like I said, the audience it caters to it ain't us three. When it was over, I had that feeling of that's it.
Thank God.
Yeah, like okay. GR, what's up? Like, did you feel like Joe? Were you like praying to the heavens and thank God it's done? Or
there was no point to the ending.
Yeah,
there was no point when you finally seen a wolf transformation. And as I'm watching the guy, his face, I'm like, oh my God, he looks like oh my God, what's the name of that freaking movie with the neighbor that was the vampire that lived next door?
Fright Night.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. It was like Fright Night with a little hair.
Hold on, don't compare this to Fright Night.
That's what it looked like. I'm saying it was just all right. We're gonna take that look. We're just gonna add a little hair and stuff. But then when it's revealed that that's her dad, he's been whining her part of his life, but at the same time, Greta's music was more important than her. I mean, it was so scattered all over the place that when it finally ended, you're like, what the fuck was the point? Like, what was the point of the ending? Like, what was it? It's just so frustrating. This movie was like so frustrating at that point.
Well, okay. So see, the thing is that the song that Vaughn wanted Gray to finish is that actually Greta is Gray's mother.
Mm.
You know, so he wanted her. So that's the Gray ends up finding out that Vaughn's actually her father. You know, she's of bloodline werewolf. You know, she didn't kill her mother. This movie was just too predictable. It was too predictable. You know, by the time
that's what I was gonna say when he mentioned his point. I don't mean to cut you off, but when it got to that ending, you were like, okay, that's what I figured.
Yeah, it was predictable. I was glad when it was over. And I compared it to Bitten, but you know what? Comparing it to 2000's Ginger Snaps, which is a Canadian horror movie, putting those two together, this was like completely lackluster. Like, actually, if you have time, if you end up watching Bloodthirsty, go ahead and look for Ginger Snaps so you can cleanse your palate and get a better Canadian werewolf movie in there. But yeah, the movie was just, it was like, it wasn't our target audience. It was too predictable. Twist figured out from the get-go. I mean, I was not surprised by anything in this.
But then at the end of the movie, it was even that scene. Like, so you went through this really bad experience in this house. What happened? Like, come on.
Yeah.
Well, all right, guys, I'm gonna tell you this right now. For me, the ending, I don't have nothing else to say about this. And we're gonna go right into closing thoughts right now. We're gonna go to Joe first, but before we go to Joe, I'm gonna say something. Everyone knows The Howling. If you're a horror fan, you know The Howling. You know American Werewolf in London. You know the classic werewolf films. But there's one film. Skip this film, in my opinion. If you want a real werewolf movie, Dog Soldiers will definitely fulfill your appetite. You guys seen that?
I have not seen that one.
Oh man,
I have not seen that one.
I've not seen one.
Wait a minute. None of you guys seen that?
I've read about it.
It's not a horror film. It's more of an action horror film, but it is awesome. It's I believe it's a British film. Oh, yes, you know what? Who directed it? Oh my god, who's the fucking guy? The guy who he did directed by Neil Marshall. Dog Soldiers is dope. All right, guys, closing thoughts time. Joe, take us home.
Well, if you can't tell, I hated this film. I did not like it. It was not for me. You know, I know that it's got some crazy, great reviews and ratings. I don't know by whom. And I'm going to save the 1 star because I know eventually we're going to get a 1-star movie. This is going to get a 1.5 from me.
Damn.
Yeah,
Nice.
I'm honest. I'm mad you made me watch this movie. I really am. I didn't watch it. A second or third, there's no need.
Oh man, I'm gonna go a little awkward, but before I go awkward, one of the rating sites for this, and this is what I say: never go by this site because this site gets a lot of movies wrong. Rotten Tomatoes does not know how to rate horror films. They gave this film an 80% on their website. There's 82. No way to.
82%.
It must have dropped 2% probably when you rated it on their site. But this is why when you watch a horror movie, go and watch it on your own. Go watch it your own judgment because sites like these ruin movies, and they ruined this one. For me, I'm gonna go awkward number just to be awkward. I'm gonna go 1.65.
How's that?
Because he does. Because he wants me to look like an asshole.
This is what I'm gonna tell you to the writers and producers of this film. Do yourself a favor. Go back, rework that script, reboot this sucker with more in-depth stories. And you probably are going to get a higher rating than what we gave you today.
Nah, you know what? No, don't reboot this movie. Just let
Actually, you know what? Here's the thing: if it don't hire actors to play roles that they've already played before.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I came into this film. I wasn't thinking anything. 1 point whatever. No, this out of 5. I was gonna give this about a 3, honestly, because I don't think it's a terrible film though. It's not. For us, maybe. For us. It's not for us. It ain't made for us. But on paper, I've seen way worse than this film. So I'm not gonna say it's a trashy film. I just don't think it's just not for the horror fiend and each and every one of us. This is a film for a younger generation who hasn't seen The Howling or American Werewolf. This is for them. It ain't for us. All right, horror fiends. That's gonna close out another episode of Three Corners of Horror. We weren't too high on this film, but were you? If you liked it, leave us a comment down below. I am Ricky Grimes. We got JR. We got Joe. Awesome. Well, join us back here on Three Corners of Horror. Please be safe. Come back and enjoy the show. Peace.
Let's take it from the top.
What do you want from me? Go do your worst to me. Are you here to torture me? Put my heart in a hurt. Hellish or heavenly, close to my end.